Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here and thank you to be here. I will work about the interaction between personality factors and family functioning in predicting being associated to bullying roles and moral disengagement. This work has been carried on with Angela Mazzone, which I thank. So I will skip this because I think that everyone knows what bullying is. We talked about this in these days. And we also know that the whole class is involved. So we will talk about bullies, about defenders of the victims, and outsiders, those who shy away. And we also talk about moral disengagement, whose mechanisms contribute to deactivate moral standards. So there are cognitive processes which help us or which help the transgressor to avoid responsibility and to justify their own bad actions. They are negatively associated with empathy and with guilt, and they are positively associated with aggression and with bullying, and recently also we found out also with the outsider behavior. So talking about intra-individual factors, we selected 3 personality characteristics which are within the individual, so they are in a sense the continuation of temperament if we think at personality in this broad way. And talking about contextual environment, we focused on family, and in particular on positive family functioning, which we adopted the point of view of Olson, which talked about a few characteristics which build up a positive family functioning, which are cohesion, flexibility, communication, and satisfaction. So cohesion is meant as the emotional bonding between a family member, and it's usually put in contrast with the disengaged family or enmeshed family. About flexibility, we talk about the way in which roles and rules are organized versus a chaotic family or a rigid family. These balanced levels of flexibility and cohesion are associated with a good communication within family members and with a great family satisfaction. What we know about intra-individual and inter-individual factors and bullying roles and moral disengagement. Actually, in particular, about moral disengagement, we know very little, and we also do not know much about the defenders and outsider roles. We know, for instance, that positive aspects of personality, such as agreeableness or benevolence, are positively associated with defending and also with outsider behavior. So actually outsider is still in this middle position of being a positive role similar to defender, or a negative role which fosters bullying. Benevolence is negatively associated with bullying. Extroversion or energy, or the way of being totally sociable in a way and open, is associated with bullying and negatively with outsider behavior. But extroversion has also been found associated with empathy. So in a sense, these findings cannot say whether extraversion is a good quality or a bad quality in order to develop a moral or a moral behavior. We also know that other personality factors, such as low agreeableness, may facilitate self-serving justification, so they are associated with moral disengagement. Similarly, what do we know about family functioning and bullying and moral disengagement? And again, the literature about moral disengagement is more scarce than about bullying roles. We know that low communication levels, low cohesion, and low affective involvement are associated with bullying. So actually also the the first studies by Olveus said that a low affective family could be a risk factor for being involved in bullying. Again, we found less literature about defending and outsider behavior. We know that parental support and a secure attachment to the mother are associated with defending behavior, but we didn't find any significant association with outsider behavior. Rejecting parenting predicted moral disengagement. So, we wonder, talking about individual or intra-individual factors, which personality characteristics, among the one we dealt with, are associated with bullying, related behaviors, and with moral disengagement. And about the contextual or inter-individual factors, is family functioning associated with bullying-related behaviors and moral disengagement? And moreover, and maybe more interesting, we also wondered whether personality characteristics interact with family functioning to predict bullying-related behaviors and moral disengagement. So how do they move each other, or whether personality factors, family function has a role on different personality aspects. 113 early adolescents were participated in the study with a mean age of about 12 years, so 11, 14 years old. We use peer nomination to investigate bullying roles, so bullying, outsider behavior, and defending behavior, so who amongst your peers offends the other, or who stands by when bullying is taking place, or who helps or stands up for the victim. We use a moral disengagement scale designed for bullying situations. So two example items is teasing a classmate is not really hurtful, or victimized children usually deserve being bullied. We also use other two self-report measures, which is the FACES, Family Adaptivity and Cohesion Scale, and which yields several scales, but we just were interested in family functioning score, which we obtain combining 4 scores: cohesion, the members of our family support each other during hard times; flexibility, in our family power is equally shared between parents; communication, the members of our family are able to express their reciprocal fondness; satisfaction, I'm satisfied about closeness among the members of my family. I'm sorry. And we tested the personality aspects through the hierarchical personality inventory for children. And we selected, for the purpose of this specific studies, the scales of extraversion, is prone to talk to others; consciousness, is very committed in each task is doing; and benevolence, is very tolerant with others. So, what did we find? These are a simple correlation table in which we can see that bullying is associated, of course, with moral disengagement, as well as outsider behavior is associated with moral disengagement, but this is not one aim of our study. Bullying and moral disengagement are positively associated with extraversion, whereas defending behavior is negatively associated with moral disengagement and positively associated with benevolence. Again, also moral disengagement is negatively associated with benevolence, conscientiousness, and family functioning, which in a sense confirms what also, I don't know, common sense maybe would suggest. This is the regression, and besides a few confirmations of the previous correlations, we did find some interaction effects about FF is family functioning, so about family functioning and conscientiousness, benevolence, and extraversion. And I will show the graphs, which are maybe easier to understand. So this is the interaction between family functioning and conscientiousness in predicting defending behavior. The blue line is the significant one and is the negative family function. So we dichotomized the positive and negative family functioning. We can see that a low conscientiousness is associated with low defending behavior, but only for those children who has a negative family functioning at home. Conversely, if we see that the positive family functioning line is not significant and is almost parallel, indicating that maybe positive family functioning is a protective factor per se. So independently from low or high conscientiousness, those children who has a nice climate at home do present a defending behavior. This is the association between benevolence and family functioning in predicting outsider behavior. And we can see here that high benevolence is associated with low outsider behavior. So the more you are benevolent and the less you are outsider, so you are more caring about others, if you have a positive family functioning. So the negative association between outsider behavior and benevolence holds only when you have a positive family functioning. This I find particularly interesting. It's the interaction between extraversion and family functioning in predicted moral disengagement. And we can see that extraversion is associated with moral disengagement, but only if you have a negative family functioning. So extraversion doesn't seem a negative or positive aspect per se. You can be also a nice guy, extroverted guy, sociable, and open to others and to new experiences, and this is not associated with a bad outcome or with, moral disengagement. However, if this characteristic is associated together with a negative background at home, low communication, low cohesion, this may be risky, and this, in this sense, can be associated with moral disengagement. So, just to trace some lines, I think I have been very quick. We underline that these are preliminary results, so actually other analyses are taking place in order to take into account other things or other way of analyzing data. But for the time being, we can see that individual and contextual variables are important and maybe need to be taken into account when addressing bullying behaviors or prosocial behavior as defending, and also morality aspects such as moral disengagement. We saw that a low conscientiousness is detrimental, of course, for defending behavior, but only if adolescents have a problematic family functioning. So positive family functioning and high conscientiousness seem to be protective factors per se. So they are quite good background that we have, that children can have. Then we saw that the combination of high benevolence and positive family functioning decreases outsider behavior. And as I've just said, that extraversion is not negative per se, but predicts moral disengagement only in combination with the low family functioning. So we would, one thing that should be done is to enlarge the sample, because it's not so big, but also to go further with longitudinal studies. In particular, we wonder whether bullying behaviors, moral disengagement, or personality aspects can influence family functioning. So, I don't know, having a child, I'm also thinking about the previous talk that in which family are really involved in what children are experiencing. So maybe also having a bullying child or a morally disengaged child may affect the way in which flexibility or rules are given at home, or satisfaction at home, or communication at home. It would be interesting to include other personality aspects, and reading the literature, personality aspects are numerous, and dependently on the instrument used or the authors who work on it, many dimensions are included into personality. Emotional stability, irritability, hostile, rumination. We found many things. For instance, I also found a paper in which moral disengagement was included as a personality factor, which we usually don't think at it as a personality. And it will be also be interesting to disentangle family aspects, so to see what is the role of cohesion, what is the role of satisfaction separately. Finally, of course, going towards a more applicative outcomes or implications, we think that intervention programs should also address families, and maybe the talk that of Magnus previous also maybe could go in that direction, that families need to take into account, and family climate and family well-being. Also because for the specificity of this paper, maybe it's more difficult to change personality. So we maybe have to affect other aspects, and maybe family is one of them. Also because family have, we found that family functioning has the power to affect social relationships, and also to mitigate individual or personality characteristics which are considered negative. Thank you for your attention.